Hello there. What's going on, everybody? Today, we're going to be talking about the Rebel Troopers in Star Wars Legion. The Rebel Troopers, that first core unit that you get. And we're going to be breaking down this unit and going all through it today. Also, if you are new here, I do want to remind you there's time left to enter to win the $25 Amazon gift card. All you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. Those giveaways tend to run for about 2 weeks. Usually at the end of one of my videos, I'm going to announce the winner, and you have to kind of watch all the way to the end to see if you win. That is kind of the deal, and it's hopefully meant to encourage you to watch longer and not just watch the first 5 seconds and turn off, because hey, that's kind of the trade-off. So let's talk about the Rebel Troopers for Star Wars Legion today. They are a very, very cheap unit at only 40 points. You're going to really have a hard time trying to find any unit cheaper than them almost anywhere in the game. I think the B1 battle droids are the only unit that actually comes cheaper than them for your core, and they're kind of like the backbone of the rebellion. Now, there have been more core units that have come out since the launch, but these guys were in the core set, and they were the first thing we had as young Rebel players. And they were great at the time, but new, fancier stuff has come out, but we've also gotten some new things that come out to help out the Rebel Troopers over time, so that's also cool. And so we're going to be taking a look at all of that today. Now, for upgrades, they do have the standard. They kind of set the standard for what would be a core unit upgrade with the heavy, the personnel, the equipment, and the grenades. They have the black die for unarmed, and they have a black die for range. So the range attack is actually not half bad. Black dice are usually fairly good. They're kind of right in that middle territory. And the range 1 to 3. And so it's just a really solid, normal, respectable bubble. Rebel Troopers can kill some stuff. But they don't have that offensive surge, and that's going to hurt them a little bit. And it always seems to happen to me, as I'll attack with 4 black dice and get like 2 surge, 1 hit, and a blank into only light cover and have nothing. So that just happens more often than I'd like to admit. They do have speed 2. They have a white defense die, but they do have defensive surge, so they have just a hair more defense than a lot of other rebels do. Now, they only have 1 health and only 1 courage, so they're going to die really quick, and they can be either panicked or suppressed really quick too. And being suppressed really is the more likely thing to happen, because hopefully you're at least close enough to your commanders where you hopefully don't run off the board and panic. But if if you just have at least 1 suppression and don't rally, you're going to lose an action, and that really hurts for these guys because, well, they're not all that great, so they really need to make use of actions. Rebel Troopers being cheap and not really being the best unit in the game makes them excellent objective hunters. Rebel Troopers are, and the cost is what makes them great, because you can just throw like 3 extra naked Rebel Troopers into a list and have them be strictly objective hunters, moving to a point, grabbing some supplies, taking them away, flipping some moisture evaporators. I mean, you can't get better than that as far as the cost benefit analysis. It's just fantastic. So like, as far as somebody's gonna in the comments like, I actually have a better way. I'm like, well, that's great. Well, my point is that they're cheap, effective, and disposable, like pawns and chess. You just get them out there, have them do the job, and then let your heavy hitters focus on trying to actually kill the bad guys. That is certainly one option. We're also going to talk about other builds for them to have them do other roles as well. But then their key word here is what really gives them their standoutness, and that's Nimble. Nimble is, after defending, if you spent 1 or more dodge tokens, gain a dodge token. Now, it doesn't matter how many dodge tokens you spend. After a defense is over, let's say you spent 3, after that's all over, now you're going to get 1 back. And then if you get attacked again, you spend that 1, and once that attack is over, you'll get 1 back. So as long as you keep surviving, you're going to keep getting a dodge token as long as you spent a dodge token. So the idea here is the Rebel Troopers really want to defend in a place behind heavy cover and while having a dodge token. Ideally, against small attack pools, if like a naked stormtrooper unit is shooting you, they're going to get some white dice. Oh, they managed to get 3 hits through. Okay, no problem. 2 go away for heavy cover, 1 goes away to dodge. I take no damage. Good. Oh, I got a suppression, but that's okay. I get my dodge back. All right, and then the next attack comes in. If 2 or 3 hits, no problem. Dodge 1, cover blocks the other ones, no problem. So that's kind of the idea. The rebels want to be kind of dug in and heavy. The problem is, and this is going to be something that's going to influence a lot of the decisions and ideas and build, synergies throughout the rest of this video, is that dodge is not that good in Star Wars Legion. Now, it was a little better when the game first started, but primarily you have the Stormtroopers, which were the equivalent for Rebel Troopers for the Empire. And then you had the Rebel Troopers. The Stormtroopers get an ability that gives them some benefits when using aim tokens, whereas the Rebels get, their counter to that, which is a benefit when using dodge tokens. Problem is those two aren't equal. Aim is great, but dodge has the critical keyword of basically the critical vulnerability of not being able to cancel critical results. Now, there are new keywords coming out all the time. We're seeing some of the new vehicles that have a new keyword that do let them spend dodge to cancel crits. So if something like that arrives that Rebel Troopers gain access to at some point, that will drastically make dodge better for them. But right now, criticals can't be canceled by dodges, and with the proliferation of critical X as a keyword on so many new weapons and heavies and personnel and so many different units, critical X is all over the place now, way more than just regular surge to crit ever used to be. That now Rebel Troopers really aren't viewed as a defensive unit. They're not viewed as a unit that you want to, I can stop all those units with all my dodge tokens. No, you can't, because the crits are going to roll right through, and there's more crits in play now than ever. Hopefully that will be adjusted at some point, but we're going to have to wait and see. So that's kind of the standpoint moving forward with the rest of this video. Now, if you ever got Rebel Troopers, one of the first things you're going to get is the extra Rebel Trooper personnel card. This is quite simply just 10 points for one extra mini in the unit. You can only put one personnel upgrade, and this is a pretty cheap one. Not the cheapest, but we'll talk more about that. If you picked up the Rebel Specialists, you're gonna get 4 new personnel options. We'll run through those. You might put an R5 Astromech here. This is only 8 points. Hey, that's a little cheaper, but he's a non-combatant, which means he can't actually attack. You can, however, help heal vehicles, which is kind of cool. Or maybe you're running R2-D2 and he's repaired himself all he can, but he needs some more help, and you can run this to kind of help out with that. That's something that you can consider doing. So the R5 Astromech has some uses, doesn't get used all that much. However, if you want to heal personnel, the 2-1B medical droid is a good option. I like this one for 2 reasons. For one, if you just happen to have an extra Rebel Trooper that you wanted to be able to kind of stick close to your commander and just heal them in case they got sniped or something like that, it's kind of good for that because the unit itself is already pretty cheap. But I also like this if you've got a heavy that's in your unit that you really don't want him to accidentally get terrain scoped. And what I mean by that is you moved somewhere and your heavy, like your Z6 or something was sticking out around the corner and somebody sniped him. And since that was the only unit they could see, he had to die. Well, then you were like, oh, I made a mistake. And now, granted, more experienced players won't have this problem, but if you're a newer player, you might. Well, having a medical droid is good for that. Or also against somebody like Vader with Force Choke coming in, hey, I'm going to kill 1 mini. Well, now your medical droid can go ahead and pick them back up. And that much is great. Now, in that case, Vader might just say, well, if you haven't activated yet, well, maybe I'll just kill your medical droid instead. That might be an option, especially if you know that he's just going to immediately pick up the heavy. But yeah, that's definitely one of the options. And so I do kind of like to put a medical droid on a more expensive unit, like maybe Fleet Troopers or Rebel Veterans, just because at 18 points, he's still only 1 hit point on that unit. And for units that cost more, the value of that extra hit point kind of goes up a little bit. So it's a little more efficient from a certain point of view. But then again, also on those more expensive units, sometimes you actually want another attacking unit. Right? A lot of times you want a unit that's going to roll dice when they attack, and the medical droid can't. So he's all right. You also have another kind of cheaper unit, and that's the Rebel Comms Technician. And I say kind of cheaper because, yes, it's only 9 points. Hey, cool. But you'll also gain a comm upgrade. Oh, also cool. But you must use the comm upgrade. That's really the problem here, is that you must use it. And that, and you're going to be spending something like 5 extra points, maybe even more than that. And the thing is, a lot of the comm upgrades don't really synergize with Rebel Troopers. I actually like Rebel Comms Technician a lot more with Rebel Veterans, for example, because they have more things that are going to let them really work off of the tech that the comms things tend to do. Like if you needed to make sure you got issued an order, you might want to use a comm on there. But at the same time, Rebel Troopers tend to be that unit that you don't issue orders to, and you just hope all your Rebel Troopers are in the pile, or pull from the bag, or pull from your, or your pocket, or whatever whatever kind of opaque container or opaque bag that you're using to pull your tokens out of. So I still kind of put mine in a stack, but that's just for casual play. Anyway, yeah, so their comms technician's okay, just doesn't really synergize with what Rebels do, and the fact that you must take the upgrade increases its cost. Now, I think the best option in that particular pack, in that Rebel Specialists pack, is the Rebel Officer. Now, this is 19 points, so it's going to be a little more expensive, but it does a lot of different things for you. First off, it becomes your leader. So you're actually going to replace the leader miniature. But also, it gives you Inspire 1. Huge, right? We talked about losing actions. You only have Courage 1. If you get suppressed, you're going to lose an action. You don't want to do that. So this can help somebody else who looks like they're going to lose an action. Oh, no. You're fine. You're fine. Let's get rid of that suppression off of you. Or somebody who might panic also, that's also good. But also it increases your courage by 1, so now 1 suppression isn't enough to make you lose an action anymore. You need at least 2 suppression, and then you need at least 4 suppression in order to panic. This also turns your unit into a great candidate to become your new battlefield commander if your all your commanders should fall, 1 or both. All right, so yeah, Rebel Officer, really good option, does a lot for you. Yes, it's 19 points, but there are just so many times where having that extra action, and he can really kind of provides you 2 extra actions, because if he's able to inspire another unit and keep them from losing an action, it's amazing. It's really good. So love the Rebel Officer. Also, for you Imperial Assault fans out there, the art on this card that matches the miniature, it is absolutely Gideon from Imperial Assault. Now, they don't call him Gideon, but that's absolutely what he is. We also have some extra personnel upgrades that recently came out only a few months ago. Well, I guess it's been a little bit more than that now. But with the Rebel Trooper upgrade pack, we got 2 more personnel from that pack. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the Rebel Trooper Specialist. This one is all right. It's 4 points more expensive than your normal Rebel Trooper. It, of course, is a combatant, so it can roll dice. It's not like one of those droids that can't roll dice. But it's doing a couple things for you. First off, it's giving you an extra equipment slot, which is, it's okay. I don't really think Rebel Troopers always need to use their upgrades, I'm sorry, they don't always need to use their equipment slot. They can sometimes. It certainly depends on the direction you're going for. But very few opportunities I really see to want to run 2 equipment slots, because now you're already paying 14 points for 1 extra hit point. But then you also got to put 2 equipment slots on there to really use that. I mean, you don't have to, but if that's the direction you're going for, you're building a very expensive Rebel Trooper unit. So that's something like, I don't know if I'd want to put that many points into a unit that, dodging isn't going to help, and, that is potentially so easily killed. Now, speaking of so easily killed, this Rebel Trooper Specialist does allow you to take a free action. It's exhaustible, by the way, but you can take a free action here to get a dodge or a surge token. Now, the surge token will only be useful on offense, and that's fine, because hey, they don't have offensive surge, so that's kind of cool. But the dodge token is just not as good. We talked about this before. Dodge tokens aren't as great. If dodge tokens somehow become better for Rebel Troopers at some point, then this guy's stock will rise. But right now, I view him as somebody who's just going to give you a surge token. And hey, that's fine, but it still goes away at the end of turn. And, by the way, out of all the other specialists that are available, like your clone specialist and your Imperial specialist, both have the option to give you an aim token. And aims versus dodges, aims are so much better. So I feel like this is the weakest of the specialist type units, and I would really rather just have an aim, because aims are great. And, oh, by the way, an aim lets you reroll 2 dice. A surge is only going to correct 1 die, so an aim can potentially get you a much better much better result, especially if you roll blanks. Maybe you didn't even roll a surge. You're more likely to roll blanks than you are to roll a surge, so just an aim is just so much better. All right. And Rebel Trooper Captain, this is the one I really like. This guy is cool for a number of reasons, and I'm going to talk about those. He's also an exhaustible. To use his... Now, the exhaustible on him is worded a little weird, so we're going to talk about what part is actually exhaustible and what part isn't. He's also 14 points. Not as bad as Gideon. Gideon is 19, right? This guy is only 14. So, of course, this guy is also restricted to Rebel Troopers only. Now, he becomes the leader, but he doesn't increase your courage. Right? He doesn't increase your courage by 1, but he does do a couple of other things. First off, he gives you a training slot upgrade. That's just part of at list building. He just has that. And that's cool because we're going to talk about training slots. But when you activate, you cannot remove suppression tokens or be suppressed during this activation. This is the part that you'd have to exhaust him to use. It's not an on all the time ability. This is, if you want, it's got a double-edged sword. You can tap him and say, all right, I'm activating the Rebel Trooper Captain. This turn, when I'm activating, I tap him. Now I cannot remove suppression tokens, and I cannot be suppressed during this activation. This means, oh man, I've got a I'm close to Luke Skywalker. I've got 3 suppression on me, so I know I'm not going to panic, because you can still panic. But I don't think I'm going to rally all this, but I really need, to take 2 moves, or I really need to be able to claim and move, or something like that. And it's really what makes this so great is for the objectives. All right, Rebel Troopers are great for objective hunting. This guy really works with that, especially on the last turn of the game, or in any of those clutch turns. And you'll probably only be able to do this once, because then you're going to have to recover. Now, if you're grabbing an objective and then hunkering down, then maybe you can afford to recover and make up for that. But really, he's incredible. And if you do think you're going to be suppressed, you could always, you probably don't want to use him and then recover in the same exact, unless of course you have a lot of suppression, unless you have 3 and then you're not going to panic. Go ahead and tap him. Now, but of course you can't remove suppression tokens during this activation, so you don't want to do that. I'm kind of stumbling over myself here with this guy, but he is pretty cool. So you won't be able to. I mean, you could recover, you'd get the card back, but you wouldn't be able to remove the suppression. So not really ideal. Ideally, he's probably a once per game ability, because Rebel Troopers do die pretty quickly also. But in those times where you need him to get that objective in, like move and sabotage the moisture evaporator, or claim something and move out of the way, or just double move on the last turn to make it into the enemy's deployment zone or something like that, they're just really nice for that ability. So I like him on that. But also, he gives you, here's the other thing that makes him really nice, is that he gives you access to training. You can gain a training upgrade icon. Now, Rebel Troopers don't otherwise have access to training, and training actually has lots of different really cool things. If you want extra dice, they can be more offensive. They can be defensive. You can increase your standby range from all types of training upgrades. But remember before, when I was talking about aims, I think it's just a great way to be able to get offensive push on your rebels. Now, you have more reasons to possibly want to recover, because now you can also reset this and your leader at the same time. So it really works with the synergy for recovering. But this is going to basically give you a free aim token when you move, which allows you to to move, aim, and then shoot all at the same time. I love it. I love offensive push. It's cheap too. It is cheap. Now, again, it's not like the best upgrade in the world, because you're not going to be able to do it every single turn. But it's a good, solid upgrade. And the Rebels normally don't get aims all that much. So, that's like one of their weaknesses. So for a 4-point, I guess maybe, 14. He's cheaper than Gideon, right? But he's still, it starts to increase the cost of your Rebel Troopers a little bit. But I do like this ability right here. I really do. Okay, so that's our personnel. Let's talk about heavy weapons. The Z6 Trooper. I'm gonna start with the Z6. Came with the core box. Came with the Rebel Trooper expansion. It's one of the first 2 heavies you saw for the Rebels. This one's great. This is still my favorite heavy. Still is. And I know a lot of people have mixed emotions on Z6s, because sometimes you roll all blanks. Sometimes you're all blanks in one hit. Sometimes you're all a couple of blanks and a couple of surges, and you can't do anything with it. I get that. But I personally have had pretty good luck when rolling whites, because there's, like I was talking about crits earlier, sometimes crits make or break the game, and every die only has 1 crit. So there are plenty of cases where you just need the most number of dice possible, because maybe you have to shoot at a vehicle and you have no more impact and you just need crits. Crits are the only thing that's going to do it. Well, this gives you the highest crit potential. This has the highest ceiling of any weapon available to the Rebel Troopers, as just about any weapon available to just about anybody. It's one of the highest ceiling weapons in the game, because it's got 6 dice. Now, you're not going to roll 6 crits, but it has happened, right? But you're not going to roll 6 crits. But a lot of times when I roll a Z6, a lot of times I have at least 1 or 2 crits for whatever reason. Maybe my white dice are just lucky. But yeah, so I have fun with the Z6. And they also are great if you can work in an offensive push or something else to give yourself an aim. If you're going to have aims, now more dice are better than ever because now you're more likely to have at least, at least 2 blanks, right? Because the Rebel Troopers, if they're just attacking regularly, they're rolling all black dice, they might not have that many blanks. You might actually get lucky and roll. You have a chance to roll 4 hits, but you add in 6 more whites, you're probably going to have at least 2 blanks. You probably have more than that. On the other side, you've got the MPL 57 Ion Trooper with 2 red, which is, the red dice are great, right? Yeah, no, he's not 32 points. He's been down. I think he's 24 points now. But yeah, he got a points adjustment. So the card itself will stay this, but if you're playing him in a tournament, he's going to be cheaper. Still not very good. He's an exhaustible. All right, that's another thing I love about the Z6. You shoot this guy over and over again, man. This weapon never overheats. It's like a magical Z6 made from Mithril, straight from the elves. Or if we're mixing mythology. It's a Tolkien Z6, right? No, the MPL 57, look, you gotta exhaust it, and then you're gonna have to recover just to fire 2 red dice. Just 2 dice. Okay, all right, but it's got Impact 1 and Ion 1. So this, like, when the game first launched, this was designed to, like, stop somebody's ATST from having 2 actions. Because, hey, I'm going to get at least 1 damage through, and hopefully you don't roll a block. That was kind of the idea with the MPL 57. Okay, I get that. Ion's a little bit better now. We got more heavy vehicles, so Ion might start, showing up a little bit more. Ion has all kinds of new effects with droids, especially if you're shooting it into shields also. Look, Ion does a lot of different things, and that's kind of cool, but at the end of the day, this exhaustible weapons are just not that desirable because it's so hard. You only have 6 turns, and then you're really giving yourself a hard cap of how many times you can really use this. You're not going to just stand still and like shoot and recover 6 times in a row. It's just not going to happen, especially with a range 3 weapon. If it was like a range 5 weapon, then maybe. But not with a range 3 weapon. You're just not going to do that. You're going to have to move. You're going to be having to move and shoot. So you're not going to be able to recover every turn. It's just not going to happen. So I'm not a big fan of this weapon at all. Most people aren't. Most people don't really run this right now. That might change in the future, especially depending on what new things come out. Or if there is speculation that some of the exhaustible weapons will get changed to cycle. Cycle would make this a little bit better. Still wouldn't make it top tier, but if you didn't have to do that recover and you could just use it every other turn and it would recover on its own, so that would be a lot better. But as of right now, it's still not that good. Now with the Rebel Trooper upgrade, we got some more heavy weapons. Now for close range, now you've got the SX-21, good old Ithorian. All right, this guy's got armed with a awesome double barrel shotgun. And it's got Impact 1, so this gives you a little bit of options if you have to go up against vehicles. But, he's really about the dice pool and about the cost. At only 20 points, he's pretty cheap, right? So at 1 to 2, so he's got to be closer range than most of your other Rebel stuff. Which means if you're firing with this guy in your build at range 3, where a lot of firing does tend to take place, you're unfortunately going to just have to use this guy to roll a black die. Or maybe you can get closer and then split fire or something like that. He could give you a very effective split fire option. But then again, so does the Z6. But yeah, like 2 red and 2 white is not bad. Again, you don't have that surge, so you kind of need the guaranteed hits or the more likely hits, and that's why red dice are so good for Rebel Troopers. Well, they're really so good for everybody. But yeah, the SX-21 is not bad if you're playing a very aggressive Rebel Troopers that are going to try and get into place very quickly. Problem is, they die really, really quick, and their defensive capabilities are not great, and that whole dodge mechanic doesn't work out that well for them. So if you're trying to get very close to your enemy, you're probably going to be dead before you can do it. This is one of the reasons why a lot of those close-range units don't do very well, like Fleet Troopers right now. But on the other end of the spectrum, we got the DLT-20 Alpha. Now, this is the one that a lot of Rebel Trooper players have been waiting for. This is a great weapon right here. Great heavy weapon. 26 points. A little more expensive, but it's good. It's really good. First off, the main reason is it's range 1 to 4. Range 4 Rebels, welcome to the range 4 game. Range 4 has started to become a really, really popular thing with the Empire. The Empire's theme practically became range 4 between Shore Troopers and Death Troopers and Bosk and the Mortar and all of that. I mean, look, they had the Stormtrooper with the DLT. Okay, they had range 4, but it was such a small dice pool. It wasn't that great. But once they got more and more and more, it just became crazy. So, like, the Empire would have, like, this huge... And it's not always Rebels versus Empire, I get that. But a lot of Imperial lists kind of defined, like, range 4 is like, you can't... If you come within range 4, I'm going to be able to shoot you. Not just with one thing, but with a lot of things. So with the DLT 20 allows you to kind of do some of the same stuff, or at least be able to approach from a safer distance, because it gives you a respectable range 4 attack. It's got 2 black and a white, which is good, and you got critical 1. Now this you have a pretty good chance of actually getting a critical through to a lot of people, so even somebody with a dodge token. So a DLT 20. Really nice. Also good for splitting fire as well. But yeah, love the range 4. Respectable dice pool. Also adds nicely to an existing dice pool that happens to be closer. If somebody's in range 3 and you happen to shoot them, hey, now you're going to get your 4 black or 5 black potentially, depending on how your Rebel Troopers are built. And then 2 more, you're adding 3 dice onto that. So it's still a good dice pool. Now, if you are going to take some equipment, there's some options. Now, I like targeting scopes, not usually for Rebel Troopers, not all the time, but sometimes. So for certain builds, right? I especially like it for the high dice pools, especially if I'm running something like a Z6. That Z6 is still my favorite way to run Rebels, and if I'm running Z6 with maybe something that's going to be giving me free aims, if I'm going to be getting aims from other people, other places, other things, like we talked about that training upgrade targeting, or offensive push rather, that if I'm going to be doing that, targeting scopes has a little bit more value for me. It's possible because now I can reroll 3 dice. And targeting scopes is fairly cheap. If it fits your build, it's okay. It's not a priority. It's not a must include. But this is kind of a corner case if you're playing with a build that's going to be able to give you out aims. One way you might get aims if you're throwing out a couple of throwaway Rebel Troopers, give 1 or 2 of them electro binoculars. If you've got like... Just an idea. If I got 2 Rebel Troopers that have the Z6s and, and they're running, some type of, tactical, or if they're running scopes, maybe I got 2 other Rebel Troopers that have electro binoculars. Maybe I do, And this could also be an option if you are thinking of running somebody with multiple equipment. I mean, electro binoculars aren't cheap though, but it's an option. It's certainly an option. It's not something that people do a whole lot. It's something that I'm willing to do because I think it's fun to be able to actually have like maybe up to 2 aims on a Rebel Trooper with scopes and a Z6. Now I can actually re-roll a lot of dice and turn that unit that you thought wasn't much into something very, very significant. Recon Intel's a good option on almost everybody because, hey, you get to do a free speed 1 move. Gets you a little closer. Again, range 4 is a real thing now, and so Rebels aren't able to just say, you step into my range 3 bubble, I'm going to get you, because Imperials or a lot of other units can just be like, well, we can get you from outside of range 3. So this can get you a little bit, farther into the battlefield, and it's real cheap, too. Recon Intel is like one of those things when I'm all done with my list, and I've got extra points, I'm like, I can throw a couple of Recon Intels on there, and so that much is really fun. For grenades, the only grenade I'm going to really recommend is fragmentation grenades. All of the other grenades, while the ones that are increasing your dice pool, only elevated up to a black, so it's not particularly good on them. And going from, so you're already elevating your dice pool from black to red with fragmentation grenades, but also you're gaining surge to crit, which is so incredibly good for Rebel Troopers, especially with Z6. Like my favorite way to run Rebel Troopers is with a Z6 and fragmentation grenades. You get, because if you can get into range 1, you're going to lose some people along the way, but as long as that Z6 survives, you've got such a, you can potentially hit somebody so hard. It's really just a beautiful sight to behold. So I do love the fragmentation grenades. I mean, there's other grenades out there that you might want to consider. Like, I don't think smoke grenades are going to be taken seriously for a long time, but I can imagine there maybe some corner cases will arise of you wanting to set up cover because you've got suppression or something like that and turn it into heavy cover out of nowhere. Or if you want to take a throwaway unit and have them kind of just suicide into an enemy unit and then drop smoke so that all of their shots, get that whole obstruction of light cover. There's some probably corner cases that way, but really fragmentation grenades is the way to go, I think, if you're going to put grenades on a Rebel Trooper. Now, there's some command cards that are going to synergize a little bit more if you're running Rebel Troopers. Covering Fire is definitely one that seems like it was built for the basic Rebel Trooper option because it's going to be giving people free dodge tokens. And granted, even though Rebel Troopers synergy with dodge tokens isn't that great because of all the criticals out there, it's still better to have a free one than not to have one at all. Because most attacks coming at you will probably have at least one hit in them. Statistically, hits are more likely than crits, but just crits have risen up so much that, you know, it's really reduced. You know, the value of dodge has gone down, but it is not zero. It is certainly not zero. So covering fire works well. Same thing with if you're running Luke, you've got My Ally as the Force. Yes, he can give out some free dodge tokens. Usually, though, when you're running this with Luke, one of those is going to Luke, so he's really only going to help maybe one other unit. That's just kind of the way that one tends to work. We're talking about trying to get people in close, especially if you're running those fragmentation grenades. Leia is really good for trying to get people into range 1, you know, or get them into a position where they can then move an attack at range 1. So this one's a pretty good one for that. Honestly, this one's good for just about any list. I really like Jin's Trust Goes Both Ways, because here's a cool thing about if she decides to do teamwork with a Rebel Trooper unit and they end up getting attacked again, they're going to be gaining another dodge token, so Jin can possibly stack a lot of dodge tokens this way because of that Nimble keyword. And then, of course, complete the mission. Again, good with any Rebel unit, but this kind of factors into that whole, hey, they're so likely to be panicked. Well, you know what? I'm going to give this to my Rebel Troopers. They're not going to be able to, not only can they not be suppressed, but they also cannot be panicked. So really, really great, like the ultimate turn 6 or final turn of the game thing to make sure that they can't be overwhelmed by all their suppression. Very cool stuff for the Rebel Troopers. And I think that kind of winds down the breakdown. Let me know if there is anything about Rebel Troopers that maybe I didn't talk about that you think are great, or what your hopes are for new things to see that might help you want to build Rebel Troopers, or your favorite Rebel Trooper build ideas too in the comments section. All right, guys, I will talk to you later. I want to thank you all so much. Big thanks to my patrons on Patreon. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you for your continued support. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much, and as always, have a great day.